Hey, everybody. We are back with the final edition of the 2023 About the Fans postgame show. I'm with Petrie, who is my loyal partner here. Petrie, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really well. I hope you are too. Definitely a nice bounce back win after last week kind of left a little bit of a sour taste in a lot of fans' mouths. So definitely nice to go on the road, get a nice conference win to close the season and secure being above 500, albeit barely.
Yeah. Yeah, last week was fun. We didn't have a postgame. I was actually down in South Florida for the game. We were able to meet up, grab some Cuban food at Padrino's. That was a lot of fun, man, meeting you in person. Um, Yeah, good time. So today the Canes win 45-20. Spread was minus 13 and a half. So we got the cover there. So Petrie, what was the first thing that you wanted to discuss in this game?
Yeah, I think that the first thing that I have to discuss today, I said it just a little bit as we were opening the show. It was a nice little way to end the season. I don't know if I want to call it a recruiting win, but it is certainly better than the alternative to have a nice large margin where you cover the spread against an ACC opponent, and our ACC record has been bad this year. On the road, which is nice. It secures us being above 500, so that's also good. And what I also liked about that one is I think it was it I think it was Caneville that had this tracked before the game,
Yeah.
and a couple fans kept track of it after the game. Five players: Restrepo, Jacoby George, Colby Young, Mark Fletcher, and Henry Parrish were all able to kind of come together on some good yardage totals for the season. So this looks very nice. I think that recruits do see these things despite a up and down season from quarterback play, that despite that, three receivers and two running backs were able to have nice uh, accomplishing seasons.
Yeah. And I think you're onto something with that. We talked pre-show about the right verbiage. Recruiting win. I know you weren't in love with that terminology, but I think it articulates the point well enough. Um, and when you were talking just barely, it came to me. Maybe it's a vibe check win. In the sense of we went down 7-0, and I tweeted, does anyone ever feel like the players care less about University of Miami than we do, the fans, right? And we were down 0-7 at that point. Boston College just kind of walked all over us with that first drive. And I think a lot of people were feeling that way. I mean, it got 70 likes by halftime. So, and that's not like I'm doing that all the time with my tweets. So the way that I felt in that moment, this game is seemingly unimportant, right? We're 6-5. It's the end of the season. This isn't a good team. Our bowl game is going to be crap either way. But the way that I was feeling in that moment, and then to walk away with a 25-point victory, the offense is flowing nicely. The defense had a nice performance. We get a great performance from our offensive line, and three of our four running backs showed out. And Chaney didn't get a lot of opportunity today. He's had a great year, so you leave just feeling fantastic about the running back room. Made me excited for next year. I have to say, I after the first quarter, I was expecting to just be like, you know what, I'm kind of glad this season's done with. But now, this type of performance gives me some hope. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and I like that too. It's probably the first game that we played since maybe, man, Texas A&M, where it was actually complimentary football, that you felt good about both offense and defense. Because you were mentioning your tweet after the first drive, like, oh man, are the wheels about to come off? How are we going to respond to this? Well, what happens right after that? So you sit there and you go, as a defense, okay, well, they got their scripted drive opening first quarter touchdown. Those happen.
Yep.
And our offense turned right back around and scored and responded. So that was very encouraging. But not only just that first quarter drive, the only other two touchdowns, they had one during the natural flow of the game and they had a touchdown to start the opening drive of the third quarter. So if you really want to say they had 2 touchdowns on 2 scripted drives, I'll give you that. That's not terrific. You'd still like to be able to stop those or hold them to a field goal, however they did happen. And then only 1 touchdown in the real natural flow of the game. So the defense really did respond. And then the offense also hung up a bunch of points too. So it was really the first complimentary football game that we've played since probably Texas A&M.
Yep. And I want to talk about Tyler Van Dyke. I think first things first, probably a decent chance this was his last start for us. Maybe he plays in the bowl game, maybe not. I think, either way, this is probably his last season at University of Miami. I'm happy for him that it was a positive note if this is the one he goes out on. It just up and down. I feel for the kid. I'm also excited to have a different quarterback next year, if that makes sense. But we had spoken about this in our prep for this show. Was TVD did not play lights out today. He had a solid game. He also missed on a number of throws. But if you look at the performance in general, his stat line, I think he was near 60% completion, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had the 1 botched fumble. But just controlling the ball and making most of the right throws with no turnovers, our offense was humming all day. 45 points speaks for itself. It just goes to show you that, this is what we wanted when we were all jumping from TVD to Emory Williams. We were just like, all we need is a guy that can control possession of the ball. Unfortunately, Emory, maybe lacked some dynamic play at the quarterback position as a true freshman. And I think this is an example of what our offense could look like if we had a above average quarterback, average to above average quarterback play with no turnovers. And the results are fantastic.
Yeah, and I agree with that completely. I don't know how anybody could possibly have watched what went down today and disagree. I did put it out during the game as well. Every half-decent quarterback in the nation has to be licking their chops watching this game, sitting there and going, these wide receivers and running backs are eating. That offensive line looks good.
Yeah.
And Van Dyke's throwing a bunch of dead ducks out there basically and has his feet planted in the ground. He's not mobile, and his arm – there's not really a whole lot of zip on the ball, and he's not really getting a lot of distance behind it either. So you sit there and you're going, well, what is he really doing well? Hey, congrats on not turning the ball over. Every half-decent quarterback in the nation probably thinks that they could do that. So
yeah,
I think it speaks to what the preseason hype was, and also following the first 4 games, how bad he actually has been. The fact that we're sitting here going, woof, about 60% and 2 touchdowns really surpassed my expectations for today from a kid who we were thinking isn't exactly a Heisman finalist lock, but at least could be floating around some consideration area and maybe some first or second round draft pick consideration area. And that's just not where he's been. So the fact that we're even having that conversation really does speak to how bad it has been over the last 6-ish weeks.
Yeah, it was definitely kind of a game manager performance from TVD, and Boston College's defense isn't great. Someone on Twitter pointed out to me that if you look at their yards per play statistics, they're 125th on defense this year. But it's as simple as not turning the ball over when you have a good defense and a good run game. That is being born on third base. That's the football equivalent of being born on third base when you have a great run defense and a great run game. And all you need to do is keep possession of the ball and hit a few passes a game. So talking about the running backs, I've been a big fan of our running back room all year. Do you think all 4 of them stay? Henry Parrish, Don Chaney, A.J. Allen, Mark Fletcher.
Man, it's really hard, because I think Fletcher stays. I almost don't have a doubt about that one. He
Fletcher's
seems pretty
for sure,
pretty solid RB1.
Yeah.
But I do think that they're going to try to bring in either portal or freshman, recruiting. They might try to bring somebody in. And then you sit there and you go, guys like AJ Allen and Don Chaney, are they going to be left out in the cold? I don't really like that so much because Chaney seems like pure Kane. I love him
Yeah.
as a player and a personality, but is he going to end up making a transfer so that he can get more opportunities at another school?
Yeah.
We'll see how that ends up going.
Yeah. He's the guy that makes the most sense. If there was one that was the transfer out, Cheney's the one that makes sense, which it hurts me because I'm a big fan of Don Chaney on this team. And I mean, honestly, I really love all these guys. I'm very
And
high on
Parrish,
AJ.
could he go pro? He might go pro. I don't know.
He might. And having him back and healthy, I haven't been paying super close attention to this. I'm pretty sure this was his first game back that he was like fully healthy, getting the bulk of the carries. And
He
he
played
looked,
lights out. He
yeah,
played well.
I think that shouldn't be underrated. That Parrish really was our best back this year when healthy, and he just brought in another level. I think Fletcher is probably the most talented guy in the room, but Parrish really just brings, like, he looks the most polished, the most if any of them are going pro this year, Parrish is the one that's ready to go pro.
Yeah. And I really like him. I really like his game. But to really answer your question, I think it's one of or both of Cheney and then AJ Allen.
Yeah,
I'd like to keep the room. I like the way AJ Allen runs, but
yeah,
he seems to be maybe somewhere between QB RB3 and 4, pretty
yeah,
clearly established in that regard. Fletcher and Parrish seem like 1 and 2, and that doesn't seem like a 1 then 2. That seems like a 1A 1B type situation.
yeah,
Different styles, more power back versus a finesse style runner, and then Cheney slash AJ Allen are more like the 3s and then 4.
yeah. I am a firm believer in the upside of AJ Allen. So, I mean, I wouldn't blame him if he transferred. I think he's good enough. I actually think each of those 4 players could start on, I don't know. I mean, maybe half of all P5 teams,
Mm-hmm.
like, they're all great. I think Allen could easily go somewhere and start at a Power 5 program next year. So I hope he chooses to stay here. I think, could you imagine when him and Fletcher are juniors, if that's our 1-2 punch in 2 seasons?
Jesus.
Like, yeah, I'm a firm believer in Allen's ability, and would love to see him, stay here and develop next to Fletcher.
Yeah, and it really was a great running game because we were transitioning kind of away from like, hey, were you impressed with TVD, kind of like just checking boxes today, versus was it really a running back game? It certainly was really a running back game, which is surprising because a very, very nice weather day. It was a good weather day out there, not too cold, seemed pretty clear conditions on the TV as far as I was able to tell. So it seemed like good conditions to have a throwing game, and yet here we were with, what was it, 3 or 4? We had 6 total touchdowns, and I think 4 of them were on the ground.
Yeah,
And we dominated TOP by 16 minutes. You get TOP by a full quarter and then some, obviously, and also 66% of your touchdowns are on the ground. Obviously, you had a running day.
yeah. So let's talk about Pro Canes. That's something you've been tracking, following as the season has progressed. Are there any guys that you think might, we've already talked about Henry Parrish. Any other guys that you think might consider leaving their last year of eligibility and going to the NFL?
Yeah, I did talk about this a little bit during the game. I'm a little concerned about Maui Noah Kiko.
Yeah,
I would love to have him back, but I do have the feeling that someone is going to get in his ear and start talking about dollar signs. First, 3-round draft pick kind of caliber player. Someone's going to get in his ear and whisper, some very nice words. So I'm really hoping that the family aspect of playing with Francis, his younger brother, for another year would be very enticing to him. And a lot of people really like to dismiss, not just me, but any fan in general, when you bring up, hey, possible NFL money is calling, and then they go, oh, well, NIL is going to negate that. I was like, I don't know how much money you think these kids are making with NIL, but it ain't NFL. I can tell you that. Like,
yeah,
if you're a quarterback and you're maybe like the difference between like a fifth or sixth rounder, if you're a fifth or sixth round evaluation, then sure, yeah, maybe your NIL bag might be a little bit better in college than what you could potentially pursue in the NFL, come back, get your year, and then go earlier in the following season. But if you're a linebacker or if you're a running back, these guys whose careers are not really guaranteed, they're going to go and get that NFL bag probably as soon as they really can. So I'm hoping that the family tie aspect of it brings him back for another year.
Yeah. So I just double checked this on the Canes website, the team roster website. So Matt Lee is listed as a fifth-year redshirt junior, meaning that he would have one more year of eligibility, if I understand correctly. He is someone, and I fully agree with your assessment on Kiko. There, hopefully, as Hurricanes fans, we selfishly hope that he chooses to come back, right? What do you think about the idea of Matt Lee coming back?
I'd love to have him back, no doubt about it, as I'm sure most Canes fans would agree on that. I just, I put this out probably a couple of weeks ago. I think it was the week before you came down, and I said, we need to get back to the way that it used to be with the Canes. One thing that, one of these things that Mario does need to do about the old Miami that he needs to bring back is, unless you're like a first or second round, maybe third round guaranteed pick, you got to come back for the extra year of eligibility. There is no point especially during the NIL. I know I just said that it's not the same as the NFL, but you can still make some money as opposed to the old days where you couldn't.
Yeah.
There's no reason for you to go and be a sixth, seventh round picked UDFA, undrafted free agent kind of guy, where the team is going to look at you, and unless you're an absolute rock star day one, you're cutting no guaranteed money. And then now what are you doing?
Yeah.
You can't play college ball anymore and get your stock up. You just have to hope that somebody liked your body of work in college and signs you to a practice squad in that regard. So unless you're a guaranteed early round kind of situation, which I don't know Matt Lee's evaluations, I mean, we'll see how that goes, right?
Yeah.
But unless he's a early-ish kind of round pick, I would say he should come back for his last year.
Yeah, and so Javian Cohen, another guy, he also has one more year of eligibility left, and I think he fits exactly into that same category. And, bringing up the NIL stuff, I know this is easy for a guy like me to say because it's not my money, right? But from a business standpoint, if you're someone who is, the school board of trustees, however that all works, if you're someone who's financially invested into this Mario Cristobal era, right? We've spent a lot of money on staff. We've spent a lot of money on facility upgrades or the planning of facility upgrades, infrastructure through personnel, with Dan Radakovich.
Radakovich, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, his, ginormous contract that we've given Mario. I think it would be most prudent from a business standpoint is with that sunk cost that you already have put in, that this would be the year to pony up a little bit extra NIL to get the Matt Lees, Kiko Mauanoas, Javian Cohen,
the Cohens
back. Yeah.
Because I think Cohen is in that same kind of class as Kiko. I don't know if Matt Lee's quite on that, level just yet, but Cohen, he's going to have some NFL people talking in his ear about hey, you should declare. So I'm with you. A lot of times, savvy businessmen and businesswomen, business people, they think of it like, hey, I'm not going to chase bad money with more bad money, but this would be an opportunity like, hey, don't be a fan later. We've been saying it for 20 years. They could get that opportunity. Like you said, hey, you're already really in on these players. Let's do a little bit more. Let Cristobal get one more year of this really, really high-end recruiting stuff. And then hopefully that can kind of waterfall in the future.
Yeah,
with returns on investment.
I think with where Mario's at too is if you view it in the sense of like, really next year is going to be the year that defines Mario's tenure at the University of Miami. I mean, I think most fans put out a Twitter poll. I'm actually going to pull it up because I want to read the results, see where they're at right now. But I wanted to just do a temperature check on Mario Cristobal. Gave 4 options. Let's see. So
Oh,
modern
I know the
physical
one you're
temperature
referring to.
change.
I did see that
So
one.
yeah, doing fine, it'll get better, discouraged, or wrong higher. So 18% said that he's doing fine. 57% said it'll get better. 17% said they're discouraged, and 8% said it's the wrong hire. Most of the commentary in the comments section were people saying that, like, I'm convinced it'll get better, but if it doesn't, next year's the year to panic. Um, hopefully the money people are looking at that and saying next year could be the make or break between whether we're paying a buyout over the last 4 to 5 years of this Mario contract, we're paying him to not coach the University of Miami, or we are happily paying him the money to coach the University of Miami. So I don't know, but I really feel like this team, if we get a Michael Pratt, if we get another transfer quarterback who's capable, we bring back this defense and this line and this running back room. Uh, there's potential to make some moves, man, to make some noise. Are they doing the 8-team playoff next year?
Next year's the 12. It's 12.
Oh, 12.
So I mean, like, hey, that's one of those situations where now it's up to 12 teams. You don't even have to win your conference to get into
Yeah,
the playoff. And I don't like to be saying it that way because I want to win the conference every year that we're in it.
yeah,
But that's just not, not something that's going to be a requirement moving forward. It's not going to be like this year where, not to get away from the Canes, but and talk about the larger football picture as a whole, where there's like 8 actually, like really good teams that could be
yeah,
CFP legit contenders. And then you have to tell 4 of them, like, sorry,
yeah,
next year it's going to be like, okay, hey, we have 8, 10, really good teams,
yeah.
and then 2 more. Okay. And we'll let them slide in.
Yeah, well, I'm not even afraid to say it. If we can upgrade the quarterback room significantly, and we'll just use the name Michael Pratt because he's a South Florida guy. He's pretty much indicated he's going to transfer. He's won some big games. Last year in a New Year's Six game, he led a game-winning drive against USC, and they beat him. Like,
Did you see that Mississippi State kid that's probably going to go into the portal? I
yeah,
can't think of his name off the top of my head, but they
yeah,
said he's top 4 in SEC history in yards, and he's like second in touchdowns, or I might have that
yeah,
backwards. But if
yeah,
you're top 4 in both touchdowns and yards in the SEC, you're probably better than what we currently have in the quarterback room.
yeah, absolutely. And he played under Mike Leach for a while, so I'm sure he'd be familiar with a lot of air raid concepts. I
Yeah.
didn't watch Mississippi State at all this year, so I don't know what it looked like in the post Mike Leach era. But
Regardless of that, you don't get to be top 4 in both of those categories by accident. I know a
yeah,
lot of people are going to say, hey, Leach was an offensive guy and maybe he, had a lot of stats during that point in time, yada, yada. But you don't become that by accident. That doesn't just happen.
yeah. No, you're right.
Look at Van Dyke. Van Dyke with the good year with oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Who's the head coach of SMU?
Rhett
Lashley.
Yeah,
The 1 year with Lashley as our offensive coordinator, and then hasn't really even been able to come close to any really big time career numbers in the following seasons.
yeah,
So you don't just become the top 4 in the SEC all time touchdowns and yards by having 1 or 2 good ish kind of years under one coach. That doesn't happen.
yeah. Well, yeah. So I will go out on a limb and say it. If we can bring those guys back, hypothetically, if we can just bring back the 3 guys that we mentioned there, I do not think it's absurd to think that we could be in contention for one of those 12 playoff spots. I mean, I think if we had a Michael Pratt caliber quarterback this year, we're probably 10-2, 11-1.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that in my mind. This is where you have to kind of tread carefully because people are going to be like, oh, you're talking about moral victories. And if ifs were fifths, we'd all be drunk. Yeah, okay, I get it. But like, you still have to talk about these things, right? Georgia Tech, Neal, win. And then North Carolina and North Carolina State, I want to say Tyler Van Dyke had 7 total turnovers. I think it was like 5 picks and 2 fumbles. I might have that wrong. So 7 total interceptions, and you lose by a combined 24 points.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry to say that a turnover is probably worth a 3-point swing, right? If a turnover is worth a 3-point swing, 7 turnovers, that's 21 points, 24-point deficit.
Yeah.
Now we're only making up 3. You don't know how the games go differently apart from that. So
Yeah.
Neal and then NC State, North Carolina, that's 3 right there.
Yeah. And the FSU game, if we could have got a quarterback performance like today, even where we didn't turn the ball over and we got 290 yards ish and 2 touchdowns, just competent, average level, maybe even a tick above average. If we get that type of QB play against Florida State this year, we beat them.
Yeah, probably.
That our defense controlled that game, and we just couldn't really do anything on offense because of inexperience at quarterback. And it's a shame that we had to play Emory, who, I think now that we have time to reflect on the middle of the season now, it's like Emory isn't a better quarterback than TVD. He doesn't pass the ball better, but he does not pass to the wrong team. And that is what we needed this season. If we had any confidence in TVD at all, he should have played and we should have won. Unfortunately, TVD did not play in a way that could give the coaches any confidence. I'm fine with us sitting him for that game.
Yeah, oh yeah, and you can't even really think too hard about that. I really look at Florida State and Louisville. If you want to call those, and this is where again you got to trade carefully because you don't want people to talk about moral victories and this and that. If you want to call valid losses versus hey, we really shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? Yeah. I'll give you Florida State and I'll give you Louisville too because Louisville left points on the board. They left 4, off the board rather. They left 4. They missed a field goal and a PAT, so they won by what was it 9 or no? They won by 7 and it should have been 11. So
yeah.
This goes both ways, right?
Yep.
Just like I could say, oh, we should have had more. They should have had less. You could have also said the other team should have had more. We should have had less. So I'll give you Florida State and Louisville, but at the same time, you look at Georgia Tech, North Carolina, NC State. Basic, barely passable quarterback play. Because even and I put this out during the game too today. Everybody's going to remember Georgia Tech this year as Neilgate, oh, we lost because we didn't take a knee. But Tyler Van Dyke threw 3 picks in that game, and we were up 3 with 5 minutes left in that game. So if we're up 3 with 5 minutes left, if he doesn't throw three interceptions earlier in the game, we're probably ahead by more than 3, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And then if everything else plays out the way it does, the Chaney fumble that wasn't, them going 90 yards in 5 seconds, then that doesn't matter because we're still ahead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
it's crazy because it goes both ways. But what I'm trying to say is in this multiverse, there's a group of Canes fans somewhere that are celebrating a 10-win season today.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a 10-win season would be a great accomplishment. I was after Ole Miss secured the, I think Mario and Lane Kiffin will always be compared as long as Mario's here, just because of, who knows? I don't even know if they actually interviewed Lane Kiffin. I know, there was some leverage from at least one of the sides and they were tied to each other, and at least in the media. Lane Kiffin winning 28 games in the last 3 years at Ole Miss, the SEC West. That's impressive, man.
Yeah, that's good.
That is the hardest division in football, and the man has won 28 games. 9.3 games per year in the last 3 seasons.
And now I will say I was a Cristobal guy at the time. I still am a Cristobal guy, and the main reason for that being is I kind of viewed them as the opposite sides of the same coin. Yeah. One guy's a little bit more conservative. You're going to get great offensive line. One guy's a little bit more flashy and aggressive. You're going to get great skill position performances all the time and things of that nature.
Yeah.
The main reason that differentiated Cristobal from Kiffin for me was that I was saying that Cristobal is actually committed to Miami. He's actually committed to the U and wants that success. Whereas Kiffin is a little bit more of a job hopper kind of guy. Yeah. And I have every last drop of confidence that he would jump at the first opportunity to go to a bigger program or the NFL or whatever you want to call it. So that was why I was also good with Cristobal over Kiffin.
Yeah.
But I will say, man, 28 wins in 3 years in that SEC West is damn impressive, because people will tell you and they'll go, oh, well, yeah, you average 9 or 10 wins a season, but what have you really won? Well, more games than Cristobal has so far in the first 2 years in a lesser than ACC.
Yeah, well, that's one thing that people are forgetting because I see that, people say, well, he hasn't actually won anything, and that's what people said about Bo Pelini. The Canes, I don't know if people have noticed, we've only won 10 games once in the last 20 years, guys.
And this guy's getting close to 10 3 seasons in a row. So
yeah, he did do it. He did it 2 out of the 3. He had a 10
well, I just meant
win
the averaging, yeah.
for sure. But he had a 10 win, an 8 win, and a 10 win. And it averages out at the 9, but man, what I wouldn't give for a 10-win season at Miami from
Do you have their
anyone.
bowl record? Do you know their bowls? Did you happen to have that or just their regular season?
I don't have it.
Because, I bet, they played in 3 better bowl games than the Canes have played in the last 3 seasons. I can say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure at least one of those years they played in the Sugar Bowl, I think. So I think they
But enough about that.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I'm not trying to draw a strict comparison, but I do think next year is a big prove-it year for Mario, and I think he has the tools. I really think that we need to keep this offensive line intact with Lee and Cohen. Even if we can just keep one of them, that's a big deal.
A lot of people also brought this comparison. I don't know whose quote it is, but you'll know it as soon as you hear it. It's the 4-year progression of football teams. First, you lose big, then you lose small, then you win small, and then you win big, right? So last year was the lose big. This year is the lose small. Next year is the win small. And then year 4 will be the win big. That's what a lot of people are saying. That's what's about to happen with Cristobal. Now, if you want to look at it in terms of exponential improvement, right? So last year was 5 wins, and we looked like shit in a lot of them, okay? This year, 2 more wins. Okay, so we improved our win total, but not only did we improve our win total, you also improved the optics. You're sitting there and going, hey, we feel really good about a lot of these games. So what was 7 really could have been 8, 9, 10, maybe, right? If we're getting, a little bit more frisky.
Yeah.
What are we looking at next year? Should I feel confident about 9 pushing 10 wins? And looking good in the losses too. Like if we're coming down to the wire and losing by 7 or less against good teams, this is the natural progression of championship football program building.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we'll see.
I actually have some optimism. I'm glad we won. I came into this game. I mentioned this earlier. Honestly, couldn't have cared how this game went. But after winning in impressive fashion, it's like, oh my gosh, I guess there is hope. So,
and I feel really good about it. We were talking about NFL players. I'm always going to shout out Borregales, probably better than Adam Vinatieri for my money. And he is free money if you're into that sort of thing. I don't know if you are into free money, but Borregales is free cash, literally sitting right there. So he's great. 6 for 6 on PATs today. 1 for 2 on field goals. The one that was blocked. I think we both agreed, if you kind of watch the replay, had the line and had the leg. So that goes in unless, with the exception of the with the exception of the defensive player making a tremendous play on that ball. So, you feel really good about the kicking. We always want Borregales back. And if we can maintain some of those offensive line recruits, Cohen and Lee, that would be tremendous going into next year. Really, I would feel really good.
Yeah, and we get we had another 5-star recruit, Pancake.
Honcho, yeah. Samson Okunlola.
Yeah.
And people were really saying like, hey, what's going on with him, this and that and the third. The inside of the program, they obviously know what they know, and we outside fans don't know the important information. But I don't think he's like upset or thinking about transferring. I think that just, hey, sometimes when you're a true freshman offensive lineman playing big boy D1 Power 5 football, unfortunately, you're just not physically ready, whether it's physical or mental, I don't know. But the kid was playing high school ball a year ago. Everybody wants to really prop up Maui Noah, and rightfully so. But we need to act more like he's the exception and not the rule. True freshmen are not actually supposed to be coming in and getting a high level, high amount of quality snaps. We can prop up and say, hey, come to the U and freshman play, and that's great. but freshmen are supposed to play at the U because the starters who are upperclassmen have us ahead by 30 points.
Yeah.
So,
yep. And I believe he was ruled out for the season with an injury.
is that so?
Fairly early, yeah. And he wasn't getting a lot of playing time before that. So I believe he'll be able to take a red shirt. I don't even think he played the 4 games, but if not, I imagine a medical red shirt would be in line. So yeah, there was an injury there. I'll have to do some message board deep dives tonight and see what the situation really is. But yeah, having another 5-star tackle coming in for next season, with Samson, and then the recruiting class.
Plus that JUCO kid, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was the number 1 JUCO.
Yeah, you're right.
Tackle or guard from the JUCO class.
Yeah, we could be good next year, man. We could be good.
So, 12-0 ACC champ, national champ. Just saying.
I think that's on the low end, man.
The new dynasty.
Yep.
What else did I have? I think that was about it for me, right? What do I have? 6 touchdowns on 11 total drives, but it was really 10 if you don't want to count the last one where we took the knee. So if you're getting touchdowns on 60% of your drives, normally you're feeling pretty good about that. I know we agree that Boston College isn't exactly a world beater on the defensive end, but toward the end, even the last drive where we did get the touchdown, that was AJ Allen, and we had backups in. We did. I'm watching the game and sitting there going, whose number, whatever the fucking number was, I don't know. I'm sitting there going, who is this number on the offensive line? Who is this number playing the wide receiver? So with backups in, we get a touchdown. That puts us to 6 of 10 effectively for the day. And then the last one, the 11th drive, of course, took a knee.
Yeah. Well, is that good for last thoughts? I'm all out of stuff to talk about. So
yeah, I mean, hey, we'll see how it goes with the rest of the teams that are ahead. I guess right now we're kind of at a point where whatever the lower overall team is, we would prefer them to win. And we'll see what kind of bowl game the Canes get. And, hopefully it'll be, obviously it's going to be the consolation bowl, but at the same time, better than sitting at home probably.
Yep. And I forgot about the bowl game. I've been doing this show thinking it was our last one for the season, and it might be. We'll talk bowl game, when it's announced. But so we might be back for after the bowl game. We'll see how that goes. Me and Petrie will plan it. But if not, this was a great year, man. So thank you again for helping out, and thank you to everyone who watched.
Yeah, been a blast as always. Jordan, it's been very much fun doing all this and getting to talk about Canes football, obviously an up and down kind of season, but definitely a blast, man.
Yep. Well, we will be back for 2024. Everyone have a safe holiday season and enjoy yourselves. Go Canes.
Cheers, everybody.